Hello, fellow traveler. Today, we're unveiling the top 10 most dangerous countries for tourists, and the last one has some chilling reasons for resorting to violence against visitors. If you've ever experienced violence in any country, leave its name and the type of attack you suffered in the comments below. And if you haven't, stay tuned to learn how to avoid countries with these kinds of problems that we'll present. Don't miss any content from our cultural trail. Follow our channel and like our video. I'm Alex Taylor. And this is my wife, Megan Collins. The first country we're going to introduce is Afghanistan, located in Central Asia, surrounded by countries like Iran, Pakistan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. Known for its mountainous landscapes and rich history, the country also carries a legacy of decades of armed conflicts and foreign interventions. This makes the environment extremely volatile and dangerous for tourists, with risks including terrorist attacks, kidnappings, and violence from extremist factions. The political situation in Afghanistan is fragile, especially after the Taliban regained power in 2021, bringing even more uncertainty to the region. The government is based on a strict interpretation of Islamic law, with rigid restrictions that affect not only the residents but also foreign visitors. Tourists, especially Westerners, can be targeted by groups that see the foreign presence as a threat to their values and way of life. Historical rivalries with foreign powers, particularly the United States, also complicate relations with tourists. After decades of war involving the US and its allies, the presence of Americans in Afghanistan is particularly delicate. Many Afghans view Western intervention as responsible for much of the destruction and suffering the country has endured, which can generate hostility. Moreover, tourism is rare in Afghanistan, and the local population generally views visitors with suspicion. Afghan culture is deeply conservative, and Western practices can be seen as offensive. This, combined with the constant fear of conflict, creates a tense and unsafe environment for any traveler who ventures into the country. The second country is Yemen. Yemen is situated in the Middle East, on the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula, bordering Saudi Arabia and Oman. Despite its rich cultural and historical heritage, the country has been ravaged by civil war since 2015, making it extremely dangerous for tourists. Visitors face the risk of terrorist attacks, kidnappings, and widespread violence. The presence of extremist groups, such as Al-Qaeda, increases the threat. The political situation in Yemen is chaotic, with a weakened government and a constant power struggle between rival factions. The conflict between the Yemeni government, Houthi rebels, and the military intervention by the Saudi-led coalition has resulted in one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. This environment of instability and violence makes it virtually impossible to guarantee tourist safety. Western tourists, especially Americans, are often viewed with suspicion in Yemen due to the perception that the United States has played a role in destabilizing the region. American drone strikes against militants in the country fuel hostility towards Americans, putting travelers at risk of retaliation. This heightens the tension and risk for anyone visiting the country. Historically, Yemen has had rivalries with foreign powers that have intervened in its internal politics and regional disputes. Western interference is often associated with the country's ongoing instability. These historical and current factors contribute to a negative view of foreigners, making tourism in Yemen extremely risky. Megan and I are deeply concerned with safety assessments like this before we pack our backpacks. The third country is Mali. Mali is located in West Africa, and despite being known for its rich history, such as the famous city of Timbuktu, the country is unfortunately marked by violence. Tourists visiting the region face the risk of kidnappings, terrorist attacks, and violence from armed groups. Additionally, the presence of Islamic extremists makes the situation even more dangerous for foreigners, especially in remote areas of the country. Politically, Mali is going through a period of great instability, with recent military coups and a civil war affecting the northern and central parts of the country. The government struggles to maintain control and combat rebel and terrorist groups, which increases the risk of violence. Insecurity is widespread, and the lack of a solid government structure makes it difficult to protect those who visit the country. Western tourists, especially Americans, may be viewed with suspicion in Mali. This is because many locals associate the United States and other Western nations with intervention in regional conflicts, which is not well received. There is also resentment towards foreign policies perceived as intrusive, which can increase the risk for American tourists. Historically, Mali has had tensions with other nations due to colonization and external interventions. The presence of former colonizers and the intervention of international forces, often seen as intrusive, has created a legacy of distrust towards foreigners. This, combined with internal conflicts, makes the country a very dangerous place for tourists. To continue unraveling the path to safe travel, watch this video until the end. Megan will tell you about Libya.
Libya is located in North Africa, with vast desert areas and a rich cultural heritage, including ancient Roman cities. However, tourism in Libya is extremely dangerous due to ongoing violence, including kidnappings, terrorist attacks, and armed clashes. Militant groups operate in various regions, making it risky to visit, especially for foreigners who may be targets of serious crimes. Politically, Libya has been in a state of chaos since the fall of dictator Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. The country is divided between rival factions fighting for control, and the lack of a stable central government increases insecurity. This instability creates an environment of uncertainty, with violent clashes happening unpredictably in various parts of the country. Tourists, especially Americans, may be viewed negatively in Libya, partly due to the United States' past military interventions in the country. For many Libyans, foreign intervention is associated with the destruction and chaos that followed the fall of the regime. As a result, U.S. tourists may face hostility or be targeted by groups opposing Western presence. Historically, Libya has had a complicated relationship with the West, especially due to the colonial period and international intervention. The memory of Italian colonization and NATO intervention, led by the U.S., leaves a legacy of rivalry and distrust. This, combined with internal conflicts, makes Libya an extremely dangerous destination for visitors. Another country that I'm terrified to even think about visiting is Somalia. Somalia is located in the Horn of Africa, with a vast coastline along the Indian Ocean. Although it has impressive natural landscapes, the country is considered one of the most dangerous for tourists. The violence includes kidnappings, terrorist attacks, and piracy, especially against foreigners. The security conditions are extremely unstable, and any trip there puts tourists' lives at risk. Don't miss our count. This is country number 5. Politically, Somalia has faced decades of civil conflict and the absence of a strong central government. Extremist groups like Al-Shabaab control various regions and pose a constant threat with frequent attacks. The lack of political stability also means that there are few protections for visitors, with local security services unable to ensure tourists' safety. Tourists, especially Americans, are often viewed with suspicion or hostility by parts of the population. This is partly due to international interference and military operations conducted by the U.S. in the region. To some groups, foreigners are associated with Western interference, which can make them targets of attacks or violence. Historically, Somalia has had a tense relationship with Western powers due to colonialism and military interventions. The rivalry between internal groups and foreign intervention exacerbates the situation, creating a hostile environment for any tourist. This history of conflict, combined with current instability, makes Somalia an extremely dangerous destination. The 6th country is South Sudan. South Sudan is located in East Africa, bordering countries like Sudan, Uganda, and Kenya. It is a young nation, having gained independence in 2011. However, violence is a serious issue for tourists, who may face risks such as kidnappings, armed robberies, and confrontations in various regions. Additionally, ongoing ethnic conflict makes some areas nearly inaccessible and extremely dangerous for any visitor. Politically, South Sudan has been plagued by a civil war that has lasted for years, involving rival factions fighting for power. Instability is a daily reality, making it difficult for the country to develop and, most importantly, to protect tourists. The government lacks effective control over many parts of the territory, making it challenging to ensure the safety of travelers, especially outside major cities. The perception of tourists in South Sudan is complex. Many locals view foreigners with curiosity, but others, particularly in war-torn areas, may be suspicious, especially toward Americans. This is due to the involvement of the U.S. and other Western powers in the region's political issues. This suspicion, combined with instability, can make tourists easy targets. Despite all the challenges, South Sudan also boasts incredible natural beauty, such as Boma National Park and vast savannas. For those who love adventure and exploration, there is enormous potential. However, it's crucial to remember that the security situation is highly unpredictable, and the risk is ever present, which greatly limits the ability to enjoy these attractions.
Still in Africa, we have the seventh country, the Central African Republic. The Central African Republic is located in the heart of Africa, bordering countries like Cameroon, Chad, and Sudan. It is a country with rich cultural diversity and natural resources, but violence is a serious problem for tourists. In various areas, visitors may face risks such as kidnappings and armed attacks. Additionally, human trafficking and the illegal trade of natural resources are ongoing concerns. The political situation in the Central African Republic is highly unstable, marked by conflicts between armed groups and the government. Since 2013, the country has faced a civil war that exacerbates insecurity and the lack of control in several regions. This political instability makes it very difficult to guarantee the safety of tourists, especially in areas outside major cities where military presence is limited. The residents of the Central African Republic have mixed views on tourists. In some areas, there is curiosity and hospitality, but in others, the foreign presence may be met with suspicion, especially toward Americans. This is due to international influence in political and humanitarian issues, which can create a negative perception among some local communities. Despite the challenges, the Central African Republic offers incredible attractions, such as natural reserves and unique wildlife, including elephants and gorillas. For those interested in ecotourism and adventure, the country has significant potential. However, the security situation is a constant concern, and it is essential to be well-informed and prepared before considering a visit. Our eighth concern is Syria. Syria, located in the Middle East, is a country with a rich and complex history. Unfortunately, in recent years, the situation in the country has been marked by intense violence. Tourists attempting to visit Syria face high risks, including attacks by armed groups and the possibility of being kidnapped. The civil war and ongoing conflicts make any travel extremely dangerous, and areas that were once tourist attractions are now devastated. The political situation in Syria is highly tumultuous, with an authoritarian government facing significant opposition. The civil war, which began in 2011, has involved multiple groups and foreign powers, creating an environment of instability. This not only affects the general security of the country but also makes it nearly impossible for tourists to visit, as conflict zones are largely uncontrolled and unsafe. Syrian residents have ambivalent feelings towards tourists. Many locals are isolated and face extreme hardships due to the war, which can lead to a lack of hospitality for foreign visitors. The relationship with Americans can be particularly complicated due to the U.S.'s involvement in the conflict and the political differences it brings. This tension may affect the reception of tourists from the West. Despite the difficulties, Syria has an impressive cultural and historical heritage, including ancient ruins and archaeological sites like Palmyra. These places have great historical value and attract the interest of scholars and adventurers. However, the current insecurity and conflicts make visiting these sites extremely dangerous. If there is any chance of future travel, it is vital to be well-informed and prepared.
Our penultimate country is within our continent, Honduras. Honduras, located in Central America, faces serious challenges in terms of safety for tourists. The country is known for its high crime rates, especially in urban areas. Visitors may be targets of robberies, kidnappings, and gang violence. Cities like Tegucigalpa and San Pedro Sula have high homicide rates, making safety a constant concern for those who visit. The political situation in Honduras is unstable, with frequent political and social crises affecting daily life. Corruption and a lack of trust in governmental institutions contribute to the chaotic situation. These factors not only impact internal security but also create an environment where tourists may feel vulnerable. The lack of trust in the government may also mean that the protection of visitors is not a priority. Hondurans generally have a complex view of tourists. Despite the challenges, many locals are warm and welcoming to visitors. However, tourists, especially Americans, may face mixed receptions due to historical and political perceptions. U.S. intervention and support in regional issues can influence how visitors from there are treated, adding a layer of complexity to the tourist experience. Despite the challenges, Honduras has remarkable natural and cultural beauty, such as the Mayan ruins of Copan and stunning landscapes. These attractions have the potential to provide memorable experiences for visitors. However, It is crucial that those wishing to explore the country be well prepared and informed about the safest areas to visit. In contrast to the difficulties, these natural wonders offer a glimpse into Honduras's rich cultural heritage. And our final country is Venezuela. Venezuela, located in South America, has become a problematic destination for tourists due to violence and instability. Crime, particularly in large cities like Caracas, is a major concern. Tourists may be targets of robberies, kidnappings, and violent attacks. The lack of street security and an ineffective police response increase the risks for those visiting the country. The political situation in Venezuela is extremely volatile, marked by an economic crisis and a constant power struggle between the government and the opposition. This political instability has affected infrastructure and basic services, making daily life difficult. For tourists, this means that the lack of stability can impact their safety and comfort, creating an unpredictable environment. Venezuelans have a complex view of tourists, especially Americans. While some are welcoming and appreciative of visitors, others may have mixed feelings due to political and economic tensions. U.S. intervention in Venezuela's political issues contributes to this perception, making interactions somewhat delicate. Despite the challenges, Venezuela boasts impressive natural beauty, such as the Angel Falls and the stunning landscapes of the Andes. These attractions offer unique experiences for those who venture to visit. However, due to the current difficulties, it is crucial that tourists exercise caution and stay well informed before planning a trip, ensuring they choose safe areas and follow local recommendations. Now, share this knowledge with friends who love to travel safely, and see you in the next episode. And follow our channel.